So when Assiniboine Park Conservancy was in its infancy, our vision for the volunteer program was really that it would become just a critical support component of everything we look to do in the park and zoo. And I think you have to picture what it was like in those very early days back in 2008.
There were a few volunteers back then, but it was very ad hoc and there weren't a lot. Here and there, a couple of extra hands just helping out with the team, and then also just interacting with visitors when they came to the conservatory.
We believed from what we saw in terms of how people were committed to what we wanted to do, that if we could tap into that affection and sense of protectiveness people had for the park and the zoo, that it was possible. Having said that, I still can't believe that we are where we are today. It's more than we ever imagined.
I decided to volunteer for the Assiniboine Park Conservancy because I was actually I just retired. I was looking for something exciting to do, something different. My family has a history with the park. I came here as a kid. I brought my kids here. I brought my grandkids to the park. It was always a fun experience.
I met my friend in the park on my morning walk, who was also a past volunteer here. And she said the park had an ad in the newspaper, and she had applied and she thought I should as well.
The first year volunteering, we were actually called Goodwill Ambassadors, and our focus was mainly on the park. We had different routes were designed for us, and we went around and we walked these different routes, and when we encountered visitors, we would answer their questions, give them directions.
Once they get to know you and know what you love, they put you in those positions or ask you if you would like to do this particular volunteer job. So, for example, I really love walking and I like to keep really busy. So if there's a position where there's lots of walking involved, that's wonderful. If there's garbage to be picked up, I love picking up garbage and keeping it as clean as I can. If there's a group that's coming in to pick up garbage, I'll get asked to maybe host that group, and those things in particular I really like doing. And when they get to know you, you get asked to do things that they know you like to do.
When I started, there was less than 100 volunteers, and they had 4 different positions throughout the park and zoo. They were heart of the park, that's what we used to call the center of the park, and they roved and greeted visitors to the park around the duck pond and the Qualico Family Center. They were also stationed out in the Eastgate parking lot because that was the first year that they had changed the entrance of the zoo to the south entrance, so they were redirecting visitors.
I started volunteering in May 2012, and so I'm coming up to my 10th anniversary. And it's just been the most enjoyable experience. Well, one of the highlights was when they were building the journey to Churchill. Hudson was in an enclosure, and the workmen were giving him treats, feeding him food. So they asked for people to babysit him. And I thought, the second day, I thought, gee, I should read him a story. He's sitting there all by himself. So I brought my Winnie the Pooh book. And I sat and read him Winnie the Pooh, and he just sat. It was just wonderful, just me and this beautiful polar bear. And that's one of the memories that will stay with me forever.
My very first year was generally doing heart of the park. So basically, I was engaging with people as they went through the park and just talking to them about the various venues that were available to them and just interacting with them, trying to find out why they were here and what they enjoyed about it. In all my years of volunteering, I have countless memories, but the one that comes to mind first of all was in one of the first 2 years we did enrichment for the animals. Basically, we were in the zoo classroom and we were doing paper mache. It started off just paper mache of balloons, and then we got really creative and did all sorts of different creatures and animals. And the highlight, of course, is when the animals actually got to interact with these papier-mâché creatures that we had. It was just a fun time for everyone.
I decided to volunteer at the Park and Zoo because I retired January of 2014, and by the spring I knew I wanted to join something, be a part of something. And with all the excitement over the opening of Journey to Churchill in July, I knew this is where I wanted to be.
The first year is when we opened Gateway to the Arctic. So the day that opened, we were at the front welcoming the VIPs, and it was really neat to see how excited everybody was and how nervous people were, hoping that everything went well. We had a Nobel Prize winner for peace come here with the president, and I can't remember the country. This was his choice for when he won the Nobel. It was priceless. And watching them when the bears went in the tunnel, that's what makes it worthwhile, is the expressions of pure joy when the bear dives in. And that goes from the oldest adult to the youngest kid.
One of the highlights for me was a few years ago, we were yarn bombing, and that involved a group of the volunteers getting together, and we were knitting, crocheting, looming, and part of it was used for decorations that happened at the front entrance of the zoo, filling up the fence there with flowers, designs, everything. And the other part was we were making hats, mitts, scarves for new Canadians that we worked with through the Education Department and the Family Nature Club.
If somebody was considering volunteering, I would certainly encourage it. The flexibility in hours that you can work, the variety of roles, the knowledge that you learn, and you get a whole different perspective on accredited zoos and what their importance is as far as conservation and species survival. And I've certainly passed that along to other people who are a little leery of zoos, and there's certainly a lot to be leery of, but ours is certainly something to be proud of.
Often I overhear people saying, I don't know what that particular animal is. I can never remember the name.
It's a minute, I've forgotten the name of the animal now.
Those are animals that are situated in the Asian area.
You know, the big, they're like buffalo, they got a moose head.
And I say to people, well, just think, the Taukens are close to the yaks. So yak, Tauken.
Tauken. Szechuan Tauken. That's what it is.
I remember very clearly that first summer, I got involved in another event which was called Wildest Dreams. And a number of families that were dealing with different social services agencies were able to come and really enjoy an evening at the zoo, and that was really an eye-opener, and I think people were so appreciative of it.
My impression of the volunteers when I came, certainly in 2016, was I was amazed at the number that we had and the number of volunteers that were so committed to this organization.
We got involved with the interpreter program. We got involved with the
mascot handler. And then they asked us to be on the customer service team, so we jumped at that right away.
We jumped at that, yeah. And then also, the fostering engagement program. So, yeah, and there's probably a few more that we can't even remember.
Yeah, how do you decide, right? I have tons and tons of great memories. The first one that came to mind, though, was the second year of Zoo Lights. And that was because a lot of the families that were at Zoo Lights were having their Christmas parties there because they couldn't get together as a family at home. So they came to the lights and the kids were having a blast. Grandparents, parents, generational. It was amazing.
The first time I was thanked for being a volunteer, which was probably, my first year, I was kind of surprised and it felt great. So that was one highlight, that people really recognized the role that the volunteers have here. And then the second one was I was working up front, which is called concierge, and I remember this cab pulled up and the door opens and this individual gets up from the cab and is hauling a suitcase with him. I was looking and I kind of like, what's this about? And so this individual had heard about the Journey to Churchill. She had a 5-hour layover at the airport, got her suitcase, jumped in a cab, came over because she was coming to see the polar bears. And so it really brought home how much people enjoy coming here and want to be here, and will kind of make time to do that even if they're on a layover between flights.
Most of my roles were the zoo ambassador. You know, you get scheduled at various parts of the zoo. I really enjoyed being by the heavy horses because you had to be there and you got to learn about the heavy horses. One other thing I did in my first year was they had a scavenger hunt at Toucan Ridge. And so I signed up for one 2-hour shift. The 2 hours went by so fast because all the kids, they were so excited to try to find all the animals that were in Toucan Ridge. Usually they'd be in for 5 minutes. Now they're in for 20 minutes just trying to find all the animals. That's when I realized that the kids really enjoy the zoo and they take away so much from their time at the zoo that I'd never really noticed before.
How I actually started was I came to see the stingrays and volunteers were telling me how they were looking for volunteers, and that's one of the things I wanted to do. And they said that it was so much fun, so I thought, well, I'll give it a try. The polar bears are so interesting and so smart because in the wintertime you'll see them more active and they slide down the slopes and they play more. And one day I was walking by the positive care training center, and the zoo animal care person was doing some skills with the bear, and she would just call his name and he would just show up. They knew their name. It was just so heartwarming to watch this.
I was driving home on my very last day of work, and coming down Portage Avenue there was a huge sign at the opening to the park, and it said volunteers needed for zoo lights. So I thought I could do that.
I was involved with another volunteer gig which is coming to an end, and somebody there suggested I might be interested in coming to work for the APC at Zoo Lights. And I tried that, and from there I decided to become a regular volunteer and started taking their training for that. The absolute favorite thing that I did here was one day I was volunteering with the Arctic Vets crew, and they were doing an operation on a polar bear, and I got to be right behind the scenes in the same room with a polar bear being operated on. I thought that was fantastic.
Because of COVID, I had just been trained as a zoo ambassador, and the zoo closed for a few months. So it was kind of open and closed all year. There are a lot of different things to do when the zoo was closed. So I was painting fences, I was pulling weeds, doing inventory in the gift shop. So a whole lot of different things, which really made it an interesting and fun year.
I would say it's one of the best places I've ever had a chance to volunteer. The staff and the other volunteers have all been fantastic. I would have no hesitation recommending somebody to come volunteer here.
You had an awesome show going on there.
Yeah, I arranged that too. We can do everything here, actually.
Roles in my first year were working in different stations, whether it was at the Heavy Horse or Dinosaur Gallery or Aunt Sally's Barn. I was also roving around different areas, and also I volunteered for special events of the Zoo Lights and the Boo at the Zoo. For me, one of the highlights was definitely Boo at the Zoo. I love Halloween. I have my own garage haunt and homemade props, so to have 21 nights of Halloween was pure joy for me. It gave me an opportunity to get dressed up in a costume. Yes, I own my own gorilla costume, and just go around and ensure that the guests had lots of fun and put a smile on their face.
I'm looking forward to where the Assiniboine Park Volunteer Program is going to go. It's going to expand exponentially, and there are going to be so many new and exciting positions and opportunities for people to be involved at the Assiniboine Park Conservancy.
The possibilities are endless, whether it's special events, daily zoo operations, anything really with such a great team of amazing volunteers.
You meet a whole bunch of different characters and a bunch of amazing people with different stories and backgrounds. And I'm really honored that I get to meet such amazing people. And it's a pleasure that I get to know some of these volunteers that I even get to call a friend.
The volunteer program can only continue to grow. When I look at all the roles volunteers do today as compared to 10 years ago, they are in so many parts of our lives now that I can't think, every time we think of a new idea, we always try to have some kind of volunteer role in it. So volunteers are like everywhere in every part of our life, and they're just enhancing it.
And I would say that it's the lifeblood of the organization. Like, they animate every space, they support every department. I think it's just going to expand. It's nice to see volunteers working alongside staff now, doing, animal care professional duties in a supportive way, just the way they support education. It's just such a bonus for us.
What does this volunteer program mean to us here at APC? Certainly it's a key pillar of what we do and how we do things. And for me personally, I cannot overstate how our volunteers impact not only our visitors, but us staff. It's incredible.
When I think of the future possibilities for our volunteer team, obviously we have the LEAF.
The exciting part is that we're gearing ourselves to have opportunities for lots of volunteer interaction, both with the gardeners and with visitors who come to the LEAF. One of the key things would be playing an ambassador role and communicating to the public what is happening in the gardens, why the gardens look the way they do, why they're growing the way they're growing, and what is growing in these gardens. And so these opportunities are extending well beyond the LEAF and into the zoo and the rest of the park.
Which has endless possibilities and just that many more roles for volunteers to play. I know the volunteers will continue to be an integral part of whatever we grow into.
It's just a wonderful organization. The people, the appreciation, the care they give us.
And especially in the past 2 years when there's been so many changes, they have adapted and made us all feel really good about what we are able to contribute.
This is a great opportunity to enjoy nature, to get out in the outdoors, and to have a great time engaging with guests and sharing knowledge.
You will fit right in, and you'll find that it's a wonderful, congenial group of people and lots of different experiences coming your way.
I can't even think of a thing that I could say to discourage them. I would say, yes, come out, you'll have a blast.